If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain how Anchor is your one-stop shop for creating podcasts. It's free. Yes, you heard me correctly. Anchor is free. And there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. Do you like to make money? Well, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership required. Everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Hi, I'm Jeff Scoop with Beyond Barriers. This is my co-host, Acacia Dietz, and our special guests this evening are Mr. Duke Schneider and his wonderful wife, Catherine Schneider. Welcome to the program, Duke and Catherine.
You're welcome.
Well, we do appreciate the invitation, and it's always good to see and hear from you, Jeff.
Likewise, my friends. You guys have a really interesting story. Duke, well, I should preface this by saying Duke is one of our volunteers on the Beyond Barriers team, and a man that I've known for many, many years, and very good friends, Duke and Catherine. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your history first? You were involved in the National Socialist movement, and then forward from that, what you're doing now and all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's an old saying, Jeff, and that saying is that everything that you do in life is a learning experience. And as a member of the National Socialist movement, my entire goal, my aim was basically for the betterment of our country, when you come right down to it. That's why I got involved, and that's why I stayed with it. As you know, I made a lot of changes as I was moved up the ladder, and moved rather rapidly at that. Changes for the better. When I resigned 7 years later as a result of a bout with thyroid cancer, at least I had the satisfaction of seeing our stormtroopers working alongside law enforcement and giving aid to a lot of the Mexicans who were stranded in the deserts down around California and Arizona as well. They were rendering assistance, which was something that the public would never expect. And at least we both jointly have the satisfaction of knowing that we've taken something bad and turned it into something positive. And I confess, I'm proud of that. Fortunately, when I was diagnosed, everything I had crumbled just like a house of cards, because I realized my own vulnerability. When you realize, when you come face to face with your own mortality, it makes your mind work a different way. And I was definitely anticipating death. Fortunately, Catherine was very instrumental in keeping that from happening. She kept me sane, calm, normal, and she gave me the satisfaction of not only companionship, but for the first time in my life, I actually experienced somebody who was giving me love with unconditionally, and that was also very instrumental in bringing me deep into religion, which was something that I had never experienced before. As you know, needless to say, Jeff, you're an old buddy, and I know that you're very discreet with what you say. So you were always very discreet, and not saying that I was a thick-skulled, hard-headed Dutchman, which of course that's exactly what I have always been. And I've always been the one who'd say, "I'll believe it when I see it." Well, when I saw a miracle actually happening, that was enough to convince me. And like I say, I got Catherine to thank for an awful lot of this, because she really she really kept me on the path of sanity with all of that going on, and she was with me all the way. And it's funny, how still water can run so deep. All this time, I'm working as her bodyguard, just simply rendering protection, things of that nature, and not paying very much attention to anything else. And to have her tell me the day I went in for surgery that she was in love with me, and when I asked her when she came to that discovery, she told me the day I hired you. I said to myself, you know something? I got to come out of this alive now. I definitely got to live through this. And when I came through it, that's when I told her. I held her hand in the recovery room and I said, you know something? Just as soon as I get my strength back, I'm going to marry you. We got married 25 days later.
That's awesome.
And I've heard this story, a bunch of times because, we go way back, you and I, but it never gets old. It's such a wonderful story. And Catherine, I wanted to ask you too, when you met Duke, when you first met him, he was still involved in the movement and you stuck by him and you were.
Yes, that's right. I know he was a good man.
Well, Jeff, I wasn't in the movement at the time when we had gotten together. What happened was it was back in 2002. Where she was looking for personal protection because of a previous relationship that she was running from, and
my ex-husband,
and
he was very abusive, so I needed protection, and also I was signing autographs in New Jersey, and I had a stalker follow me around the whole show every day, so I had to hire somebody 24/7.
I mean, this guy was a real pervert. But nevertheless, I had a little talk with him, and he did a vanishing act. He hasn't materialized since. Getting back with it all, I undertook her protection in 2002. I didn't get involved in the movement until 2005. And despite it all, now I'm burning a candle at three ends, my line of employment, Catherine's protection, and now my involvement with the movement kept me pretty busy. But nevertheless, she just hung right in there. She never quit, never gave up, never lost hope. And as we can see, she won out at the very end.
Yeah, I wanted to ask too, because I know I didn't ask all the background questions, but both of you have pretty interesting backgrounds. Like Catherine, you had just mentioned you were signing autographs. So for the listening audience, I already know, but for the listening audience and the viewing audience, why were you signing autographs? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
You were in movies.
Oh yeah, I was in movies and entertainment, horror movies and comedies.
Plus, you were also a talk show host.
I was a talk show host for Starfire Entertainment.
That was how, as a matter of fact, Jeff, that was how we met, because she was conducting interviews at the Big Apple comic book convention, where I was signing autographs. Being a former pro wrestler, that basically made me famous in a way. We met.
Thank you.
We met when she interviewed me for the Starfire Entertainment show. And it was sometime later that she asked me if she could hire me for personal protection. I've been a bodyguard many times, Jeff, many times. I've got 20 years in law enforcement, retired with full decorations, never a disciplinary charge, never any type of anything questionable about my history as a lawman, and I've been involved in armed private security ever since. And it's a good way to make a living if you work for a good company. And I've just about done every phase of private protection. So being a bodyguard to a woman who's involved in entertainment definitely came as it was a second nature, basically. Most guys, well, as long as they know what side of the line they belong on, and they don't step over their bounds, and they remain with a professional demeanor, there wouldn't be any problem. Catherine, I have to confess, she was trying to throw a wrench into that china closet because she was doing everything she could to be extremely nice to me. And all I was doing was being extremely professional with her. And when I joined the movement, I had to be even more professional because we had guidelines that we had to follow. We had a protocol. So I did my job thoroughly, but nevertheless, I also knew what side of the barrier I belonged on. In 2012, when they diagnosed me with thyroid cancer, that was it. There were no barriers. The walls just collapsed. And I almost collapsed right along with it because I got to confess, Jeff, you know me. You know what we've been through. Bordentown, L.A., when your life was threatened, things of that nature. Back in our Washington, D.C. rally, again, where your life was threatened, it didn't faze me to be your shield. Dying by violence never frightened me at all. But when they said cancer, I found out that through everything I'd been through, I was nothing but a coward after all, because it was the most frightening experience I ever had. And yes, it did, in fact, turn my life around.
Wow.
It looks like it turned your life around for the better, though. You made some big changes, met an incredible woman in the process, and it's amazing. And I want to bring something else up too that I think people will find interesting. I don't think we explained it clearly, but Duke was the chief of security in the National Socialist Movement. So that security background was put to use by the organization back in those days as well. But there's another thing that from our history, our past history, that I wanted to bring up that I think is really interesting for a lot of people. When you were still involved in the movement, you had I'll let you explain it because you explained it better, but I remember you talking about it when we were in St. Louis in, I think it was 2009, about what the bone marrow issue. Do you remember that?
I certainly do. I mean, every time I touch my sternum, I remember it. Okay, basically what that all came right down to was a situation with a single mother. She had an 11-year-old son who was diagnosed with leukemia, and he went from a very healthy boy to a very sickly boy to a very sick boy. And they ran a bunch of tests, and needless to say, they found that the youngster needed a bone marrow transplant. It came as a big surprise when I got a telephone call from the hospital asking me that if I was interested in being tested for this particular thing, if I was interested in being a bone marrow donor. And originally I was not, but then I asked, well, what does this concern? This concerns a young man between age 10 and 11. I said, okay, let's talk. What are we talking about here? So they said, well, your blood match is perfect, but we have to test other factors to see if you're compatible. And needless to say, I turned out to be compatible. I was very happy to find out sometime later that the bone marrow transplant was not just simply successful, but the very last I heard back at the time, his leukemia went into a complete remission. And that was a very rewarding feeling.
I remember when you went through all that, and you had said at the time that it was the most painful experience as far as physical pain that you've ever had. And I knew somebody else that had went through something like that, and they said the same thing. They said there's nothing they could think of that was more painful. So that act of kindness, that compassion, that showing that humanity, that was something I still remember from that specific meeting when you were talking about it in front of the crowd there about what you were doing, and it blew me away then. It still blows me away to this day, because a lot of people wouldn't do that, especially for somebody that was a complete stranger. It just shows the type of character I think that you have, and you're just an incredible human being.
Mm-hmm. Well, basically, Jeff, I have to explain that going through what I went through as a child, as an adolescent, even as a young adult, I know what it's like to be caught in a bind, to be in a real mess and have nobody to reach out to, nobody to listen to you, nobody to help you, things of that nature. I know what it was all about to be all alone, especially as a child. And from that point forward, I could not turn my back on a stray dog or a stray cat when you come right down to it if it needed help. And needless to say, if a child needs help, especially a child, unfortunately, I never could be one to say no. I'm pretty much like that with adults also, except that the difference between the way I was then and the way I am now is that whenever I have to, when I'm compelled to help somebody out who's really bit down on their luck, it gives me a lump in my throat and a teary eye because I know what that feeling is all about. I know just how bad it hurts. I know the fear of it. And I might be a physically tough guy, but I know what it's like to be afraid. Believe me, I'm not exactly unacquainted with fear because I went through an awful lot of abuse as a young kid, and these things just don't leave. In fact, that in actuality, and I would not need a psychologist to tell me, that was one of the things that actually prompted me to build my body so strong, to be resistant to the beatings I used to take when I was a young kid. And to this very day, I still have that trauma. When I say I still have that trauma, even Catherine asks me from time to time, why am I still training the way I do? Why am I still pumping that heavy iron? Why am I doing all these different things like I'm still in competition? The fact is, if I don't keep my body strong, I don't feel safe. It's as simple as that. I just simply do not feel unprotected. I feel like I'm going into a battle without armor. And my physical fitness contributes to my sense of security. And despite it all, I was never a bully. I never pushed anybody around. I never took advantage of anyone. In fact, I'll tell you something. I can't stand anyone with a bullying nature. Really, the only thing I want to do is just land him a right cross because of all I've had to endure. Yes, I do have a very protective streak.
Definitely.
I admit it.
Because he gives them the eye, this look like somebody comes too close to me that's not supposed to be near me. And he said, don't even think about it. Well, with his eyes.
Well, look at it this way. That's the only advantage that I have in most cases is having a face that you would expect to see on an Indian's totem pole.
Because sometimes I get the screaming fans and the fans that are frightening. So I tell Duke, I said, that person, I have a sixth sense. I don't like the way he's looking at me. Mm-hmm. So I grab him,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So they didn't call him the pit bull for nothing, is what you're saying?
No.
Well, Jeff, I could tell you stories about that. In fact, it wasn't me that gave me that name. It was a doctor from the New York State Athletic Commission, basically, who gave me that nickname. Because we had basically, just tell you very quickly. Now I got this big overgrown jerk. He pulled a chain out of his coveralls during a match, and he hauled off and hit me right in the face with it, and he broke my nose. So I pulled a chain out of his hand, and I pushed him into the corner, and I worked him over like a speed bag. When they got him to the locker room, the commission doctor looks at him, and he says, it looks like a pit bull tore into him. And the promoter comes in over there, he says, yeah. He says, you're right, Doc, that's pretty much what it was. It was a pit bull. That's what they've been calling me ever since. I tell most people they call me the pit bull because I can't afford to eat anything other than dog biscuits.
Oh, no.
Come on. No, I think Catherine takes pretty good care of you. So.
She takes excellent care of me. Believe me, she takes excellent care of me. She's a great cook. She's very, she's very health conscious. I can't say enough about it. She's never cooked me a bad meal, and they're all healthy.
See? Can't beat that. Can't beat that.
I don't even try.
I do have a quick question for Catherine, actually.
Okay.
Now, obviously, when you first met Duke and everything, he was your bodyguard and all of that. Now, when he was in the movement, you were aware that he was in the movement. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And yet, you still showed him kindness, and you still fell in love with him.
Definitely.
I believe I remember you talking about either when we talked before or another time, but how when he would go on the trips for the movement and for the NSM, you would pray for him and pray for him.
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us
I
a little
prayed
bit
for him
about
that
that?
nothing happens to him. And Jeff Scoop, too. I had him in my mind also. Was to protect both of them.
See, that is incredible to me because here you are, praying for two individuals that, espouse another ideology that doesn't like other races other than, their own. And here you are, you had enough compassion and empathy to care about these people.
Definitely.
And that speaks wonders to me. It
That's
really
the way
does.
I am.
That is awesome. Now, when
Even
you
when
found out
Jeff
about
Scoop
that,
was making speeches, I still rooted for him. I said, he's going to be okay. To bring him home, too.
right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Only one time, there was only one time that she had asked me about Jeff back when I was his chief of security. And I told her, I said, well, look, you see what you see on TV, you're seeing what you're seeing on these DVDs, okay, and you're listening to him speak. But I also want you to know something else. You're talking about a family man here. You're talking about a man who loves his children. You're talking about a man who basically reads them bedtime stories before they go to sleep. You're talking about a guy who basically puts all his basic responsibilities ahead of everything, including political matters. He's an educated man. He's a very well-spoken man, and he happens to be very good company also. And I don't say this simply because I'm his bodyguard. I say this because in a short space of time, I got to know him, and I got to know him very well. And that's when she started putting two and two together and coming up with four. And she saw that despite everything, there's an awful lot of goodness over here in this guy. And that's why
he's down to earth, kind-hearted person. You can tell by looking at him. He's down to earth with everybody. You can't help but love him.
See, it's better. I've always said it's better.
You guys are too kind, way too kind.
No, it's true.
You're like family to us.
You see, Jeff, I tell people to this very day, I still tell people to this very day where I work and everywhere else, I would rather have people dislike me. I would rather have them even hate me for telling them the truth and what's really on my mind than have them hate me, disrespect me, and mistrust me because they know that I'm lying to them. That's my personal opinion of how one should actually behave, how somebody should really represent themselves. Leastwise, tell the truth. Don't tell any lies. And I tell this to everybody. You may not like what I tell you, but I'm not going to lie to you. It's just that simple. They may hate you, but oddly enough, they'll still respect and trust you because they know that there's no deception in you.
Right.
I agree with that. That's 100%. And I think what's really going to be interesting to a lot of the people that get a chance to watch or listen to this program is the reason why I was talking about we were talking about some of the things that you had done in the past and how we interacted back then and just the complexities of even the relationships that we had during the time in the movement and after, and how that changed is a lot of times I think people look at people that are in the movement and they go, these people are just scum. They look at those that are involved, and I'm talking about the general public, not people like us, but that are out. But before, when we were in, there was a lot of people in society that would just say these are just evil people doing bad things. So I thought it was really important to note about how you did that bone marrow transfer to that young person that you didn't even really know. And some of these different things that took place to show that humanity, to show that not everybody that's in these things is inherently evil or bad, that we made some wrong choices, obviously. We could have done other things, but that there's more complexities to this to kind of show that humanity. And it was the love of your current wife too that helped you to see the humanity of others beyond our trapped circle or are trapped behind the barriers, basically. So I think, I mean, if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, like I say, every experience in life is a very serious learning experience. I really didn't get to learn all that I had until I completed 20 years with the correction department. When I joined the department, it's true, I did take note of the fact that the majority of inmates are minority, and the smallest percentage are Caucasian. So, of course, that basically mark regarding minorities. But by the same token, the majority of good officers that I worked with were also of a minority nature. So I can't say that crime is in their genes, because it really isn't. It's all a part of the environment that they've come from, their upbringing, things of that nature. Doesn't have anything to do with their color, religion, background, or anything like that. It simply has to do with the environment that they're reared in. I've seen a lot of negative characters who were Caucasian too, and some of them were worse than mine, because I was a white officer, they expected me to take sides with them against everybody else, and they were rather upset when I told them. I said, "Hey, listen, doesn't matter the slightest where you come from, what your color is, or what your history is. You're on that side of the gate, and I'm on this side of the gate. You're wearing a uniform. Get used to it. You're an inmate, and I'm an officer. So don't try to pull that white brother nonsense on me." When I joined the movement, it didn't really have altogether as much to do with hate as it had to do with my resentment for a double standard that our judicial system has put together, and they have in practice. See, it had a lot to do with my frustrations as an officer, seeing all the injustice that was going on. Basically, why is it that they have more of a concern for these criminals than they do for the victims? Why is it that there's no assistance granted to the victims? And in the meantime, once someone gets arrested for a Class A felony, they automatically get a free of charge lawyer for him to defend him. These were some of the things that really bothered me, and these were some of the things that I really wanted to see a change to. In addition, illegal aliens from every country, not just Mexico, but everywhere here, getting jobs that are being denied our regular unionized employees. Basically, what does it come right down to? Dollars and cents. When you can pay an illegal foreigner popcorn wages over a $35 to $40 an hour wage to a plumber, a mason, a steel worker, a carpenter, well, why not pay the illegal guy? Because you're going to be paying him a heck of a lot less, and you're going to be saving a fortune in the process through embezzlement, of course.
So basically what you're saying is that your trajectory into the movement had more to do with the politics rather than anything to do with race. That's what I'm hearing.
Precisely. I confess that, and it's something from time to time that I know definitely showed through during meetings, talks, things of that nature. But like I say, I could resent a chronic felony offender who's my own color than hold contempt for a black man who's supporting his family, going to church every Sunday, loves his wife, loves his family, staying out of trouble, and just can't seem to get out of a bad environment. I'd have more respect for that black man than I do for that white criminal. And God knows there are plenty of them.
What advice would you guys have? Either one of you could take this question, but what advice would you have for other people that are, as you know, with Beyond Barriers, there's a lot of people that reach out to us. Some of them are on the fence in the movement, and they're kind of trying to make decisions on should they stay, should they leave. What advice would you have for anybody that's working right now, struggling, trying to change their life, or that has left and they're thinking about maybe looking back at the movement? You know, they're still on the fence about different things, and what advice would you have for those kind of people? Like how has your obviously your life has changed a lot, but what advice would you have for them? Either of you.
Well, you see, this is a very difficult matter because we've all been through it at one point in time or another. Anyone who has any kind of a profound interest in getting involved or getting re-involved should first speak to someone who has been involved and has left, like yourself, me, a few other people who we've talked about. Speak with them and get it directly from them, and they'll give you every reason why not to. You may give one good reason why you should. They can give 10 reasons as to why you should not, and they'll compound those reasons. You see, if I was an alcoholic, which thank God I've never been, I wouldn't want to go to some academically taught, classroom-trained Poindexter who's never had a drop of alcohol lecturing me on what to do about my problem. I want to go directly to a recovered alcoholic who's been there and done that and who can show me the way because they've experienced it all. And it's much the same with, as I say, with anyone who's ever been involved in any type of a hate group, any form of white power movement, any neo-Nazi organization, anything like that, who've been there and have gotten out of their own choice. Let that person speak with them, and they'll get much better direction.
So, both of your story about when you had the cancer and all that was going on. Catherine, how did you feel when you had heard the news from Duke that that he had this cancer and how did that affect you? I know the story, but I want the listening audience to hear it.
I prayed for him, and I've told him that everything's going to be okay because the higher power looking out for him. It's he's going to erase that cancer from his body. So you got to look to a higher power.
Well, it's like so many other things, Jeff. It's, seeing was believing. The surgeon originally who examined me told me straight out, this is it. You have to get this thing surgically removed immediately. You have an 8-centimeter tumor in your throat, which is radiating with cancer. And this is like Monopoly. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Got to go directly and got to get this removed along with your thyroid gland. So I'm saying, look, I'll do anything that'll keep me from dying of cancer. The pastor that I've come to be friends with and all actually made a trip into Brooklyn to have a long talk with me about things. And at the time, he had no idea that I was not only involved in the Nazi movement, but that I was a high-ranking officer. And that really hit him as a shock. And I explained everything to him. And, of course, he was the only one that gave me any form of encouragement. He was the only one that made me feel that I really had a chance. Because at this stage of the game, he's telling me, he says, listen, cancer doesn't have the last word. God does. And this man did not talk about religion. He didn't discuss religion. That guy talked about God. It's as simple as that. And he pointed out a number of things that I wasn't even aware of. Well, he went to the hospital with Catherine and me that Tuesday morning when they operated, and he hung around and saw to it that I came out okay. But chances are, I don't know if I would have been so lucky. See, 2 days prior at services, it was hands-on prayer at the altar, and the entire congregation had gotten up and they applied hands. And I remember him praying out loud, God, to curse this tumor and make it shrivel. Well, surprises of all surprises. Soon after they brought me into recovery, the surgeon comes out of the OR and says to me, well, you'll be very happy to know that we checked thoroughly all your lymph nodes. They're all 100% perfect. You're going to be okay. Just give yourself a chance to heal, and you'll be just fine. Just give yourself a chance to heal. You won't need chemotherapy, and you won't need radiation. Now, that was let me tell you, that was a joy in itself. That was when I took Catherine's hand and I said to her, I said, you know something? As soon as I get my strength back, I'm going to marry you. And she was just as happy as I was.
That was after they kicked him out of the hospital.
She stayed at the hospital all night long. She slept in my bed.
And he was in the chair sleep. Well, he wasn't actually asleep. So everybody else in the recovery was asleep but him. So he got up with the drainage tubes in his neck like Frankenstein. He got up and he's doing knee bends and exercising with the tubes. I said, my goodness.
I can picture this. I can picture that happening.
Well, Jeff, you know me better than a lot of other people, and I got a little bit of a show-off streak in me. So of course,
really?
So the nurses even got fed up and disgusted, telling me to
if you don't get back in bed, get away, we're gonna sedate you.
They got the doctor who was on that night to come up there and talk to me, and he says to me, he says, "Listen, Mr. Schneider, if you do not go to bed, we're going to have to sedate you." So I just told him in a very nice way, in a very gentlemanly way, I said, "Well, listen, doctor, if you're going to look to give me anything, it either better be a hero sandwich, a pizza, or a candy bar, because who's ever going to try to give it to me is only going to wind up eating it." It's as simple as that. I said, "Please, I feel good, and I want to be left alone." He's looking at me, "Well, where's the strength coming from?" I said, "Well, there's only one way to find out. You got to ask Samson where he got his strength from." I said, I get mine from the same department store. He's carrying on. I said, "Your thyroid gland has been removed. Your throat is all stitched up. You're all wired up, with tubes and everything. Where's the strength coming from?" I said, "Hey, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm feeling good. Just let it all go with that." And the following day, they did, in fact, throw me out of the hospital.
After he went looking for the doctor. The doctor was hiding from him.
I told him, "I want somebody to sign me out. I want to go home. I feel good. I want to go home and have a steak, for crying out loud."
So everybody was staring at him when he walked to the nurse's station with his gown and everything on to confront the nurses from where the doctor's at.
Now, the bottom line was, I figured the only way I'm going to get results in this hospital is by putting on a show. I'm going to do a little grandstanding. So I said to the nurse, I said, "Ma'am, listen, I'm not mad at you. You're not responsible for any of this nonsense. I want to get signed out." Now, I'm telling you, look, ma'am, they operated on my throat yesterday. I grant you that. It's clear to see. But there's nothing wrong with these meat hooks. And if I have to go looking for that doctor, this hospital is going to have one more patient because he's going to wind up becoming his own client. I said, "Now, I want to go home." 2 minutes later, they got another doctor to sign me out. They packed my bags, walked me to the elevator, took me downstairs, and took me right to the front entrance. And I'm saying to myself, this is definitely my lucky day. So they don't want to see me again.
We don't usually have so much excitement on this show and all these kind of heroics, but I can picture this in the hospital, the showman coming out and doing all these things. I can envision it. That's why I'm laughing even harder than I should be, probably.
I got to try to make a copy of the comedy show that I did for cable when he was in it too. And he was dressed like a cop. So I was civilian, and the scene you see me walking with the cop, and he goes to the door.
It's like I'm supposed to be escorting her home, but it turns out she's escorting me to the police station. She's there for my protection.
Yeah, so he said, "Well, little lady, this is where you and I park company." He said, "Thanks for walking with me." And he looked out the door, looked both ways, and then slammed it. I said, "It's up to us citizens to protect our local police officers."
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that rule applies today.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Most unfortunately, it doesn't. That does apply to that. But all in all, getting back to something, switching gears, being with Catherine at the time also taught me a lot of other things too. And I found it very difficult to believe until I became an eyewitness that there's still a lot of oppression taking place in this country regarding Black citizens. Because she was a single Black woman, and her job wasn't even giving her medical coverage. She couldn't get proper medical attention. She was being taken advantage of. and she was basically living hand to mouth. She's working, she's paying her taxes, paying her bills, and yet she was in total poverty when you come right down to it. There was no reason for it. And yes, even though I didn't give off any indication, my heart was breaking for her. And when her building got condemned and she couldn't find housing anywhere, then, really, I just, I couldn't control my passions at that point. And I told her, I said, listen, give it a week. If you can't find some other lodging somewhere which is befitting, I'll move some stuff out of one of the rooms I have up here in my house, and I'll move you in there. At least you'll have a place to sleep. So that definitely, worked to an advantage. The day she moved in, from what I understand, I heard this from my daughter first, and this was another thing that really caught me like a kick in the throat. She comes in the house, sits down. She's so relaxed, being that she's in a house rather than a small room, and in a neighborhood where you don't hear gunshots. And she went to boil herself a cup of tea, and she fell asleep in the living room waiting for it. So all the water boiled out of the tea kettle, and it melted the plastic top. So she took notice of that. The first thing she tried to do was clean it up, and when she couldn't clean it up, she goes downstairs and knocks on my daughter's door and shows her the thing. And the kid says, "Well, that can be replaced. That's nothing." But she said, "But I damaged your father's property. When he comes home, is he going to beat me?"
Because of what I've been through with this other jerk. He used to beat me every day.
She wanted to know, am I going to beat her? That'll
one
be the day I raise my
he said
hands.
that he was going to cut me and my kids up, put us in the garbage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like I told you, the day I will cover, told you I'll cover your back.
Mm-hmm.
Remember?
Oh, definitely.
I told you point blank. I said, well, that's one thing you don't have to worry about again, because
definitely.
he will never put his hands on you again, no matter what.
I know.
I said, don't you worry about it. He'll have to raise his hands to me first.
No.
And if he does, that's when he'll find both his hands broken up to his shoulder blades.
Got that right.
Yeah, it would not be in his best interest to raise
No.
Oh, well.
not be in his best interest.
That says a lot, and it shows, having been in abusive marriage and relationships myself, like I can totally understand, Catherine, like where you were coming from. You're like, Duke's told you that, he'll protect you and stuff, but that's still in the back of your mind because of what you've been through. And it's sad that that's how that is. But on a bright note, you know that you're with a man now that would never, ever do anything like that to you himself, and would never allow that to happen to you, ever. And
No.
that's awesome.
Well,
That's really
well,
awesome.
Well, Acacia, I was very gratified when I got an email from her oldest son when he found out that she and I got married. And he sent me an email, and he told me, he says, at least he says, I'm very happy knowing that my mother is in safe hands. And then another one of her sons sent me one saying, thanks for loving our mother. And, it's funny, though, because, you walk into something, granted, got married, and one of the side benefits was I got 4 more grown sons and 16 grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I got one grandson upstate in Albany who makes up for 16 grandchildren all on his lonesome.
Oh, wow.
This kid's a trip. Yeah. Oh, the first time I saw him, he was just an infant. And I even said back then, I said, this guy is really going to be something else. Wait till he gets a little older. I can see it already. I can see the mischief already. So the boy's name is James, and since he's the wild Indian of the family, I started calling him Geronimo James.
That's awesome.
But I'll tell you something. I love to see wild, healthy kids because they're healthy when you come right down to it. There are some very unfortunate parents who only wish that their kids can run around the house and get into things and knock things over and all that stuff because the children are not physically well. And I just, like I said, I love seeing healthy, wild, energetic kids, and I love hearing happy children. It's I know it's part of my basic emotional makeup. It makes me feel good.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say another thing that is so enjoyable. I think about being out, and being out of the movement, seeing old friends like yourself and that have changed their lives as well. And we don't say people's names because we keep all that confidential and things like that. But there's so many people from our old lives that are out and that are doing so well now, and it's such a joy to be able to see that. I mean, I would have never. I guess I shouldn't have expected to see you again, but I know when you left the movement and you were straight up with me. I was still in at the time, obviously, and you said this is what happened, and you told me everything, basically what was going on at the time, and we remained friends. Even when I was still in, you were out, but we remained friends, and we didn't talk all the time, but here and there we touched base, and I thought that was pretty incredible. Just looking back, that when friendships can transcend those boundaries and you can remain in contact with people, it's sort of like maybe this was our destiny to do the good works and the things that we do now. But I just want to thank you as man to man, and as a friend, both of you really. But for being a friend all those years.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, Jeff. There's hardly any greater camaraderie that takes place among men than people who have actually been involved in situations where they really had to cover one another's back, where they had to protect one another's lives, things of that nature. Soldiers are like that. In fact, when it comes to law enforcement, no levity intended, but there are partners, in the law enforcement agencies who actually form a stronger bond or a stronger relationship than a man and his wife do, when you come right down to it, because everything they get involved in jointly and have to look out for one another. And I was proud. I mean, I was definitely proud to be placed in charge of your personal protection. And I meant every word that I said in Los Angeles that time when word got out that I believe it was MS-13 was going to shoot you once you got down to the rally point. And I did say, in fact, well, if they're going to shoot him, they're going to have to shoot me first, because today I'm walking in front of him instead of beside him. And I don't mind telling you, faced by a similar situation today, I would do the same thing. Because loyalty has not died.
Yeah, we're definitely brothers, man, and I got your back the same way. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And Catherine, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It really is. And Catherine, I wanted to ask you what. So when you were falling in love with Duke and you'd stood by him during all this time, and I feel like love is something that transcends just about anything. And I think your and Duke's story is so incredible, and that's why it's so wonderful to have you on the program. I mean, what advice would you have for anyone that's out there that's looking for love or advice? What you would tell them, because you guys' story is just so incredible. What message would you have for the world on that?
Tell them to believe in the Lord, because he does answer prayers, and be good and be kind and gentle with people. Treat people the way you like to be treated. And don't worry about what the person looks like on the outside. As long as the person has love in their heart and have, don't forget, don't worry about the appearance. Love the person no matter what side they are. I'm not worrying about the haters that hate me.
I know.
Those
are great. Those are great.
I know
stories.
a lot of people because when somebody was watching the video of me and Duke from A Love Story, I had a lot of haters. People that said, are they going to vote me for my race?
Let's talk about that. So there was this really wonderful documentary that was done on you guys. And what was it called again, Catherine? Could you
Love Story.
It was a CNN Love Story. And We were, like I said, we were interviewed, and it was put over, CNN. And it's true. We got it for every one positive remark that somebody said, there were 3 negative ones. And this was only to be anticipated when you come right down to it, because we all know the way people really are. The resentment, well, all I can say is if someone is going to go so far out of their way to show this type of resentment towards people that they don't even know, then obviously they have a very unfulfilled life.
Exactly. And that's the exact same thing. I don't know if I was saying it to Acacia the other day or someone else, but I said, when people go out of their way, because I get that too. We get hate mail and different things like that, people saying negative things, and I know you guys do as well. It's because they're that unhappy. Why, if someone is that unhappy that they're going to take time out of their day to email or call or somebody, especially somebody they don't know, or even if they do know you, but especially if they don't know you, that's kind of weird, like that. I mean, if you think about it, it's really strange that they must be that unhappy. So instead of getting angry about things like that, now I feel more sorry for those people, because their lives must really be miserable if they're taking time out to do that. So don't let that stuff get to you. And for anybody else out there that's listening, just tune those people out, because their lives are not very good. That's why they do that.
Yeah, because one time I was on the bus coming home from work, and some lady made a racist comment to me because I was wearing a German shirt. And the lady said, she's a racist.
She was wearing something regarding the German, involvement in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. That's all it really was. Nothing more, nothing less. It was totally innocent. And because she's a black woman wearing something that has to do with Germany, right away there's resentment.
And she said, "Oh, she's a racist." Yeah. That's goodness gracious.
See, that's the narrow-minded, short-sighted approach to everything. Simply because you're recognizing another country as being successful, automatically you hate everybody else. And it's not true.
My father spoke German.
Well, your father was a Marine who did 2 tours. He served one during in Japan during the Second World War, and then again in Germany after the occupation. And this guy was
very good.
This guy was a decorated Marine. He was tough and he was smart. In fact, she tells me that if he came across me when I was a little boy and knowing the kind of abuse I was going through, he would have taken me off the street and he would have brought me home. And I told her, I said, well, I'm sorry that I didn't meet your parents when I was a young kid, because chances are I might have avoided an awful lot of trouble if they did raise me. Because oddly, we grew up in the same neighborhood, but we never saw each other.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, he grew up in Brownsville. I grew up in the Bronx.
No, you were in Brownsville.
But I lived in Brownsville.
You lived in Brownsville for quite some time.
No, but this may seem racist to me, but I would not even get out the car to get a cup of coffee in Brownsville.
Look, that's a high crime area. That has nothing to do. It has nothing to do. It's not a question of being racist. It's a question of being cautious. It's as simple as that.
Those neighborhoods are terrible.
That's all. It's a high crime neighborhood right now. I wouldn't even walk down the block over there without something happening. So really, you feeling the way you do, it's not so strange. The police even feel that way. Even police feel that way. They don't want to patrol that area. So don't feel so strange. It's not a racist thing. See, once again, talk about race relations and stuff. The idea or thought of an interracial relationship for me had never occurred. I never once considered it. I never once thought about it. I do remember once as a young boy, my father was very biased. He was very racial biased. Everything with him had to do with discipline, strength, power, fearlessness, things of that nature. That's always the thing that he tried to impress upon me. But one afternoon, we're sitting on the porch outside the house, and this black woman is walking down the block, cuts across the street in front of us, and walks into the building that she just moved into. And he's talking to me, and he says, look, that's an attractive looking woman right there. He says, look at the way she dresses real nice. She's got her hair real nice, and the way she's carrying herself. And I'm saying to myself, for a guy who basically doesn't like any nationality or color other than his own, it's surprising to hear him say something complimentary about a black woman. Mm-hmm. And that just stuck with me. I guess it was always there, but it was always repressed as well. Me personally, I never felt any type of a racial bias when you come right down to it. I couldn't bring myself to hate someone or some people who never did anything to hurt me personally or anything of that nature. I mean, if it became a personal confrontation, well, needless to say, hey, let's go for it. But if it's an instant party, then I just couldn't bring myself. I confess, I tried, but it just wasn't there. It just was not a part of me.
And I believe you 100% on that, because I remember when we were together in the movement, I don't remember, there's different people, as you know, there's ones that are in there that really aren't that racist. There's racism there, obviously, but that's not their driving factor. It's the politics, or it's a single issue. There's many different reasons or trajectories for people. And then there's some people in there that are just insanely racist, that they just hate everybody. And you and I both met those, but I don't recall any time ever hearing a racial epithet out of your mouth, even back in those days, Mm-hmm. So I believe it 100%. And that's why this is so complex. Life is so complex, and you can't just label people and put them in a box. And you're so right. Like love transcends any color, any religion, all these different things. And I wish the world could see it. It's an incredible thing. So, is the illusion of strength that the movement gave off, this hyper masculine environment, is that something that attracted you to the movement?
It's so strange. I'm gonna repeat something that I've repeated many times back when I was in the SS, and I explained that no uniform, decorations, medals, or collar insignias can glorify a man. The man must glorify those objects. Mm. He has got to be a person who's worthy of these things. When you come right down to it, a position of power. I mean, I moved up the ladder pretty quick. A position of power. I never saw any kind of a promotion as a move up in power. That was a bigger responsibility. I learned as a corrections officer. Now, corrections is not like police, because the first thing they do when they put you in a prison is you're in charge of a massive amount of criminals right there. And they'll escape at any given opportunity, or they'll stab you in the throat at any given opportunity. And I had to deal with this environment for 20 years. And I learned dealing with criminals, regardless of who or what they are. You have got to, if you're 5'7", you better stand 6'7". You could be tough as nails, but you don't have to be mean. There's always a way of getting a point through without necessarily being mean. And I've proven my point over and over again. Being a man who's nowhere near 6 foot tall, I had to prove myself on my very first day on the job. And I've never raised my voice. I never used a 4-letter word. I've never made a threat. I never did anything like that. I didn't try to show myself up as a tough guy. But I did let them know, however, don't raise your hands. Just do not raise your hands, because it will not benefit you in any way. In fact, it may lead to your demise. So as an officer in charge of what I was in charge with in the NSM, once again, I'm dealing with manpower, but I'm dealing with manpower on a much different level. But it's still a question of delegating authority without necessarily being abusive. And I had never, under any circumstances, had abused anyone. In fact, as Jeff would recall, if there was anyone among us that had something on their mind, something bothering them, a critical issue or something, I was always a person who would take them aside and say, listen, I may not have a solution for you, but I'm willing to listen if you want to talk. And if you want to talk, you got my full attention. Okay? And if you want me to keep it in confidence, we're going to keep it in confidence. When we were in Missouri, I remember I was sitting in in the lounge area of the hotel speaking to a young female NSM member. And we sat there at the table talking for about 2 solid hours. And right away, the first impression was she just broke up with her fiance, who was a stormtrooper. And there we are talking. And everybody's of the opinion, it looks to me like Sergeant Schneider over there is going to look to move into this other guy's spot. They were very surprised to see this, this woman and her former fiance sitting at the breakfast table the next morning talking, because I was sitting there all that time trying to talk to her and convince her to reconcile with the fellow and get re-involved. And I was very happy when it all worked out that way. People, they judge too much by appearance, and that was the first impression that they got. But that was definitely not my intention whatsoever. I was very happy, in fact, when everything worked out for the better. But like I say, that's pretty much the way I am. That's the way I've always been. Maybe I'm a frustrated social worker or guidance counselor or something. I really don't know. But if, like I say, somebody has an issue, I'm always willing to sit and listen to them. Predominantly, I imagine, because I never had anyone to listen to me. I was always alone.
Wow. Go ahead.
Well, bad experiences sometimes can either make a person crazy, or it can push the pendulum in the opposite direction. And I mentioned once before, like my parents, let them both rest in peace. They didn't set an example of what to be as parents. They set an excellent example of what not to be as parents. And fortunately, very fortunately, I raised 3 good kids. Never got in trouble. Never had a problem with drugs or alcohol or anything. And then Catherine, God bless her, she became a single parent, and she raised 4 good, solid men. 4 good men. One of them being an ordained pastor. Can't say anything bad about that. Mm-hmm. You definitely can't say anything bad there. Mm-hmm. And it's strange. I'm approaching 71 years of age. And we are still, at my hand raised, we are still on our honeymoon.
And we don't argue about nothing.
No, we talk. We don't argue. We talk. We have discussions.
No disagreements.
We can have a disagreement here, but we talk about it. We do not argue about it.
Right. I want to thank you both for coming on the program. It was amazing. It was so good to see you both. Is there anything that you guys have in closing that you'd like to close off?
Anytime at all. We're very grateful for the opportunity to speak. We're very, very grateful in general, and believe me, I'm a guy that's got an awful lot to be grateful for. And I leave this parting note. I say this: I'm going to be 71 on my next birthday, and if I got anything to say about it, I'm going to live another 71 years after.
And I'm going to be 66 in August.
Oh, you look amazing! You look amazing. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining with us.